right, we are going to be working on a bit of a stretch for your lower back today, if that's giving you pains, especially as over here we just got dumped on with snow. So if you're feeling that, if you were shoveling or whatever happened in your life that you're feeling that in the low back, this group of stretches can be very, very helpful. Now, what we're gonna do is start off very gently with a move I've learned is the hip twister. So we're gonna lay back, and if you have a mat, use it. It doesn't really matter, you can just lay on the carpet in your living room. We're gonna bring those feet a little bit wider than the mat, a little bit wider than hip width, and let those knees fall down to one side. You can take as much or as little time as you like, gently releasing and relaxing into each side. Now, oftentimes, if there is a lot of tightness through the hamstring and through a lot of the muscles that cross your hip, that can pull on the low back and pull it out of place. And so if that low back is pulled out of place, a lot of the work that we do when we're carrying a load from the upper body, it will not transfer down into the lower body well. It'll stop and put a lot of pressure on that low back if we're not able to keep it neutral and keep it in line. So we want to do some stretches that release that low back, allow it to stay in line, and your lumbar back has a slight curve in it naturally. We want to help support that slight curve. So going back and forth, and you can hold it on one side or the other if it feels good to you. Now from here, we're going to bring those feet in a little bit wider than hip width, shoulder blades down the back, and we're going to activate the glutes, hamstring, and some of the back by doing a glute bridge. So I like to actively press through the heels, bring those hips up nice and high, back down. Press through the heels, bring the glutes up nice and high, holding it for 1 to 2 seconds, and back down. We're going to flow through this, back and forth. And as you try to lift those hips, imagine that you're trying to lift them higher than your knees. You're not going to get there unless you are incredibly flexible, but that's what we're going to aim for. Lifting, almost getting higher than those knees, and feeling your core engaging at the top of that motion as well. 2 more here. Now, if you feel a pinching in the low back, you don't need to go nearly as high. We're just activating those glutes, getting ready to be able to get into these other stretches a little bit more deeply. So we just did 12 there. Now, we're gonna come up, and from here, I'm going to come into a lunge stretch. So I'm gonna face the stretch. So, lunging forward, bringing one foot up. Now, if this isn't accessible and you need something like a little table or chair to put your hand on to allow you to get into that, I encourage you to grab one that's fairly stable. This is not very stable, it's only 3 legs. But send that foot forward, lean your hips forward, and let that knee fall gently out to the side a little bit, coming back and leaning forward into it. If you feel comfortable doing this without support, you can do that, lunging forward. And notice my foot stays fully in contact with the ground. Then from here, if you want more stretch, you can bring those hands down to the inside of your foot, shifting the hips forward, opening up the back, and rocking it back. Coming into it gently and back out. Into it gently, back out. Now from there, you can do 5 to 10 on each side, then we'll bring in the other side. shifting it forward and back. Once again, the foot stays in contact with the ground. The knee can gently come out to the side. If you want more stretch, bring those hands down into the inside. We're gonna rock it back and forward, back and forward, and once more. Now from here, we're already in a lunge position. If you still have a hand on a piece of on a chair or something for support, feel free to leave that there. We're going to move into a lizard. So when we do this, what I'm going to do is be in this lunge stretch. We're hinging forward and allowing, if you have your support here, or if your hands are down, we're gonna allow this knee to gently fall out to the side. We're gonna be on this outside edge of your foot. Maybe if you need a little more stretch, you can push into that. But I like to flow in and out of that stretch, not quickly. We're not doing a ballistic stretch where you might tear a muscle. We're gently flowing in and out, finding a little touch of discomfort, stopping well before there's any pain with this stretch. If you feel maybe that back knee needs a little bit more cushion, feel free to do that, or maybe tuck the toes of that back foot. Then we're gonna rock back. We're gonna switch over to the opposite leg, bringing it forward, hinging forward. Still, if you have that support and need it in order to get a good quality stretch without straining, that's what we're going for. We're gonna listen to the body, let that foot fall out onto that outer edge, the pinky edge. And for me, I like to lean away from that knee, feel it all the way up through the hip. We're just gonna listen to the body. Stretching is a very relative thing. It depends on the muscle, where you feel that stretch, how far you can go within that stretch. But we're always going to listen to the body, listen to that particular muscle, what it's ready for, what it's warmed up for. Let's do a couple more. And back. The reason I'm doing a lot of those stretches that cross the hip joint is because of that pull that we can have on the low back. If we stretch these out, then it can help release some of that work. Now, what we're going to do is move into a pigeon pose. So, when we're doing this, what we're going to do is lift up off of the ground into a bit of a plank. You can bring that foot forward and lay that knee down, and then stretch the opposite leg out behind you. Now, this is often not accessible for a lot of people, so this is a great one you can also do using a chair if you've got it close by. So, sitting down, and I'm sitting on the edge of the chair. I'm going to bring my leg up beside that chair, let my opposite leg come off the edge, and do this with a little bit more room. We once again need to make sure that you can get into the position and relax into the stretch. If there's too much tension, you can't get there. So, sitting on the edge of the chair, we can hinge forward, trying to keep that back nice and tall. Hinge forward, feeling that up in the hip. And then later on, maybe we can fold over. But I like to keep that back tall and active. Good. Continue to gently move into and back out of that move. For a couple more times. And then let's bring it up and switch over to the other side. So if you're on the ground, we're lifting up, laying that foot down and across. Now, once again, back staying tall, trying to hinge forward as though you're trying to send your belly button or your chest forward instead of folding over. We're trying to keep that work up in the hip. If there's pain in the knee, draw your foot closer into your body. If you have a little bit more flexibility there and you want to press that foot further out, this is about the max that I'm able to do with good form. sending the hips out of the chest forward, back up, forward again, and back. And to lift out, we're going to press those hands down into the ground, maybe curling the toes under and lifting from there. Now, another favorite of mine is something that I've learned as a quad rocker. So, actually, let's face it this way. So, on all fours, we're going to walk the hands a little bit in front of your body and keeping the hips high over the knees. We're going to send the chest down towards the ground. Here for a second or so, and then bringing it forward. Now, if you're working your low back, we want to be able to release the tension and not press it any further. So I'm going to be on my elbows. Send those elbows down into the ground, lengthen your neck, and I want you to drive your elbows into the ground as though you're trying to drag yourself forward. Breathe into the low back here, deep belly breaths, and it should almost feel like your spine is lengthening a little bit. And then gently coming up and back, forward, driving those elbows down into the ground, lengthening that spine, pressing down. If that's not accessible and you just need to lay, breathe into that low back and help it settle down into place. I like to think of this move as we rock back and then forward as the chance to stretch out the spine a little bit, allow things to fall back into place if they were a little bit out of place. So if it's really painful, this could be a really good back stretch to start with. In fact, when I was nursing the twins and I sat curled up a lot, as much as I tried not to, it's really hard not to do that. This was one that was really helpful to release the tension in that low back. And finally, to finish out, another favorite is a figure 4 stretch. So you can do this on a chair. I'll show you the chair first. What we'll do is sit down, bring your foot up and over. Now notice I have my lower leg across the knee, not my ankle. We don't want to put pressure on that ankle. Lower legs across the knee. Sit up really tall and actively try to use your leg to press that knee down towards the floor. You can do that with your hand. Be careful. Just make sure that you're going to that point of a little bit of stretch, but not actual pain. Or if you pretend like you're trying to press your knee towards the floor, it helps activate up by the glute. We activate the glute, and then staying tall, hinging forward, we get a little bit extra stretch. Activate, relax it, and stretch. And we can do well by activating, relaxing, and stretching. Generally helps release if there is tension up there. Then we'll do the other side. So you can either stay on the chair or move in to the other side on the ground. So if you're doing this on the ground, we're sitting up nice and tall, crossing that lower leg over the knee, drawing it back, and we can do the same thing. Either putting a little external pressure, or even better, squeezing the glute and trying to send that knee down, and then sitting up nice and tall, we get more of a stretch through the hips. So if you notice your low back is rounding out, try to send the belly forward, almost like you're trying to arc backwards a little bit, and we're gonna get a stretch through the hip. You can also lay down, hands behind the thigh, and draw that knee towards you. It helps to keep your back in a fairly neutral position without you having to work for that. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now, just to finish out today and Bring that back to a nice neutral position. Let's just do a few cat-cows. You're bringing your back up, rolling it down. So the cat, you're tucking your tailbone, you're bringing your head down and sending your chest and mid-back up as high as you can. Then the opposite, we're gonna lift the tailbone, we're gonna lift the head, sending the chest and stomach down towards the floor. Rolling through this a good 5 to 10 times. And if you found that this was helpful, feel free to roll through this video again, or pause and take more time if any of the stretches felt like they were really reaching a particularly tight spot for you. Going through several times really allows your muscles to relax and loosen up well. Please let me know if this was helpful to you. I'm happy to share more tips and ideas.